Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan.
I'm James.
And I'm Callum.
And tonight we're talking Game of Thrones and Batman, but we're taking it a bit easy.
Yes, so last week, because of the technical difficulties, we had to rush the show to fit everything into the hour, and we're talking really quickly. And this week we're going to take it really slow.
I'm going to talk really slowly.
Talk really slowly.
We're talking about Game of Thrones.
I'm not Bran anymore. I'm the three-eyed raven. So yeah, we're going to be like really relaxed and take it easy. Callum's finally back.
I know. What is this place?
Bloody, you've forgotten. You've forgotten already.
Oh, don't worry. I hated it. I hated work. I mean,
Yeah.
So I'd rather be here.
Yeah, unfortunately. Hopefully that doesn't happen too much.
No, not for a while.
Yeah, not for a while.
I'd
anyway.
see the difference. I just say no. James knows what it's about.
Yeah, I'm just like, nope, I'm busy. Busy doing nothing. So, yeah, thanks to Nathan as well for keeping his cool last week when I was freaking out and be like, the John Wick review's ruined. The whole show is ruined.
It's not ruined. I just don't take it as seriously.
Yeah, because I really want the show to be good, and I don't know if it is.
Look, sometimes the circumstances outside of our control
You just
can have an impact on the quality of the show.
You just do the best of what you got. That's
Yeah,
it.
true,
It turned
true.
out all right.
I think, the episode turned out all right. So, yeah, we're going to start off tonight with Game of Thrones, the finale, and the surrounding reaction to it. Originally, we were going to talk about it last week, but then we had the technical issues where we had to
So we had to weigh up whether to push the review back for John Wick or push the Game of Thrones discussion back.
Yeah, so I wrote most of my notes for Game of Thrones. I wrote when the finale happened, which was a week ago for the last week's episode, and then we didn't do it that way. And so even though it's been a week since the finale, pretty much what my notes are non-spoilery because I didn't know, because it was just the day after the finale. I didn't really... So,
but still spoiler warning.
Yeah, like... we're gonna keep it pretty vague, so maybe mild spoilers, but also if you haven't seen the finale, maybe skip ahead in the podcast. I'll put the timestamp in the description. But yeah, so sort of not a firm spoiler warning, sort of
A mild spoiler.
Yeah, my notes are non-spoilery, but we might get into more specifics as we go. So one of the reasons, I loved Game of Thrones. One of the reasons we don't talk about more on the show, even back in the Man vs. Movies days, was one, we never have time, and two, Callum and Nathan haven't seen the show, or at least not all of it.
I've read all the books that have been released, but that doesn't count because the
have
show
you both,
overshot the
Callum,
books.
read all the books?
I read all the books but the last one he released.
Okay.
But it's not fresh in my mind at all.
Yeah,
but
it's been a while.
I've been following along with even though I don't watch the show,
But-
I have been following along with the rest of the reactions.
Yeah, you guys know.
We know the story now.
So we'll get into it, and I think we'll be able to kind of figure out what's going on. So, Game of Thrones finale or final season 8, just finished, and the showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, fans call them D&D. They kind of. They're the Ryan Johnsons of this. To put it in a context that our listeners will understand. They started off, all right, and then
so much promise.
Yeah, they started off promise, and then they just turned to the dark side. So once the Game of Thrones, the show, passed where the books were up to, you started seeing cracks. There are a few problems,
which is a testament to the strength of the source material.
Yeah, but it's like, it wasn't a huge deal. Like, there were a couple of problems, but season, 6, even 7, it's like, not too bad. But season 8, just, I don't know what the hell happened, but just...
Money.
Yeah.
Money!
It's like,
God.
It's so out of, indescribably, the quality drop is huge.
Now, so what season would you say this happened at?
8.
Began?
So once the first 5 seasons are based on the books, and then 6, 7, and 8 take place after where the books are at. season 6, you see a little bit of problems, but mostly the threads that George R. Martin, the author of the books that he conceived, like the showrunners are taking those and sort of
there's like a
them off.
logical arc.
Yeah, even though you can start to see some of the cracks there. Season 7, they started to rush a bit, and they were trying to get everything set up for the end.
See, that's what I don't get. Like the rush.
Well, that's exactly it. This season 8, like season 7 was started to get rushed. It was only 7 episodes, which, you know, usually the seasons are 10. I don't know why they did that. Season 8 was only 6 episodes, which is insane. So the whole like last season is just rushed. It didn't make any sense. Like characters just were really dumb. Everything was stupid. I hated everything.
Star Wars parallels are everywhere.
Yeah. So like, and also out of those 6, so like they're trying to D&D are trying to tie up 10 years, almost 10 years, and 8 seasons of story,
and 23 years of lazy writing.
Well, we'll get to that later. 23 years of George R. Martin's world.
Writing when he can get around to it.
Yeah, when he gets around to it. But, like, they're trying to tie all that up in 6 episodes, which is just ridiculous.
That's, amateur
Also,
hour.
3 of those 6 episodes, or arguably more, is mostly filler. Like, a lot of the stuff that happens in season 8 is just kind of like,
I'm pretty happy.
why are we watching this?
I'm pretty happy I'm not a dedicated follower of the show.
This is
Callum would have had an aneurysm.
Yeah, I would have stressed out the whole time.
Especially as someone like you who gets very attached to the source material, you'd be like, what are they doing? But like, this is what's so disappointing, is the show started off so good, and it was just like, you have to be watching this show.
That first season,
yeah.
like,
gold.
oh my God.
Now that it's ended, I'm just kind of like, I don't want to recommend this show to anyone anymore. Like, you guys shouldn't even, I don't even know if you guys should finish watching it, you know?
I'll be honest, I don't care. I'm not one of those people who walks around saying, I don't watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But I have an apathy. Like, I'm interested.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to watch
But like, when like a few years ago when I was still like season 5 around then, I was like, you guys have to watch it. You guys have to watch it. Now I'm kind of like, you guys don't really have to watch it.
Yeah, no, like, I get what it's about. Like,
Yeah.
I understand.
And look, you know what? It's everywhere on the internet. Not going to spoil it here now,
Yeah.
obviously. But it's like the ending's everywhere.
No, but not
like,
just
I know how
not
it
just
ends.
spoiling the ending, but like
everything about
the
it.
production, the
Yeah.
enjoyment of watching the show.
But as you said, it's going to be
That's
soured
kind
by the
of-
fact that the ending is crap.
Exactly. So yeah, like the last couple of seasons, but especially season 8, like just characters aren't themselves anymore. Like there's a complete reversal of like character arcs, and like
I hate that.
just characters doing 180 for no reason.
Yeah, oh.
And not even like
In a
it's-
Luke Skywalker way.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But not even like, you know, like not even in the sense of like, the first few seasons are based on the books, and so the characters act a certain way, but the last couple of seasons are not based on the book, and so the characters start acting dumb. Or there's definitely that, but then on top of that, there's like characters will act a certain way in the last season, and then will change depending on the episode or depending on what situation they're in.
Depending on the writer of the episode.
No,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
actually that's actually what I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
The sign of a good writer, and not just screenwriter, as a writer generally, is someone who can feel out what someone's
Yeah.
done in the past and then go with it.
There's
Keep a character keep their integrity to
Yeah.
the path they're on intact.
There's this cliche thing that a lot of authors, I'm sure, say, like the characters take on their own life.
Yeah.
And the characters tell you what they're going to say. They tell you what they're going to do.
So you can't just
Now, a
jump
TV
into another
show-
man's boots and then be like, I'm changing this.
Now, a TV show has lots of different writers. But generally, a good TV show has writers that come on and they understand where there's, and they have good showrunners.
You look at The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Right, a long-running HBO TV show,
Yeah.
which had many writers, I'm sure, over the course of its life, and many directors and so on.
Yeah.
But throughout it's the same throughout the whole show with very little.
Yeah. Vince Gilligan in Breaking Bad is the prime example of a guy who had a vision and who, you know, worked with other writers to sort of keep that consistent, cohesive. D&D, I don't know what, they were probably just in the back doing coke or something, because there's just complete lack of oversight or cohesion or like any logic. There's no logic to
honestly,
any of
they
it.
probably got drunk on the power. Game of Thrones is the biggest entertainment.
Definitely.
Well, I say entertainment. It's the biggest TV show out right now.
Yeah.
Well, when your show's big enough that you can just be like, people are going to watch it anyway. We're a phenomenon. Then they're not going to care as much.
It's like they'll watch whatever we do.
They have nothing to prove. So there's no stakes. They can do whatever they want without having to worry about how it's going to impact the show down the line.
There's definitely an ego aspect that a lot of people have been discussing. So yeah, smart characters are now just completely dumb as rocks. Even characters who weren't that smart are now just dumb as rocks. Like, everyone is just making dumb decisions. Like, it went from George R. R. Martin's really kind of complex grey area. Like, everything is grey. There's no good or evil.
That's why it was such a good franchise.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't, again, I mean, Game of Thrones was never particularly amazing when you compare it to other literature of the time.
Yeah, the books.
Exactly, the books. But what made it different was it was A, low fantasy, which was what drew people to the show in the first place.
Yeah.
B, it was also an adult fantasy in that it had violence, it had sex, it had drugs.
Yeah.
It operates in the middle, the grey area.
And mostly the show was about the Game of Thrones, which was the politics of the movement of the pieces on the chessboard.
Yeah.
And now the show's just become like, dumb stuff that happens for no reason.
Although, what I do want to say, I feel kind of vindicated, because back when we were in high school, when this started airing, all the people who didn't care about fantasy used to say, "Oh, I like Game of Thrones because there's no elves. It's like low fantasy."
Yeah.
I'm like, you look at the state it's in now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel kind of vindicated because they definitely took a hard fantasy bent.
Yeah, they definitely as the show went on, it got more and more high fantasy, which I don't know what's going to happen in the books, but that might also take...
It was always high fantasy. People just didn't care enough to actually look into the lore.
Yeah. There's a lot of lore which we'll talk about.
But
well.
I just love that fact that people are upset. Like the reason they were drawn to it was because it was low fantasy.
Yeah.
But what they ended up with was dragons flying around.
That's true too. It's like when you're watching the first few seasons, it's like, oh, this is a HBO like political drama.
Medieval kind
that
of
happens
drama.
to be in a fantastical setting. Now it's just like, oh, there's just dragons and armies and stuff.
Undead warriors.
Yeah,
and
it's like, and there's none of that political intrigue or character moments.
To be fair, the sort of growth from very low fantasy to higher fantasy, if you want to call it that, also happens in the books.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
As the progression of the books goes, and when we'll see when the next book comes out, we'll see that progression.
It's also less jarring in the
way
books.
the way the show does it is because when you see that drop off of when the books end and the show keeps going.
Yeah, because there's also TV is a quicker medium. You can consume the story much quicker than reading the books.
Yeah. Characters who were complex in the grey era, now they're just one-dimensional, black and white. In the first season, you kind of, when the main character dies, it's like it's showing the audience like this isn't your typical high fantasy like the honorable knight will prevail over evil.
Not in this world.
It's like not in this world. Now we're at the end of the show and it's just like, no, it's just a normal black and white fantasy, good and evil. That's it.
Jeff Bezos is waiting in his cave somewhere, be like, haha, I'll wait till Lord of the Rings comes out.
Oh, man, yeah, I got a whole thing on that. Oh, man. So, yeah, also, like, because D&D were mishandling the show so badly, like, there are points after they leave the books, like Season 5, Season 6, like, where they kind of kill off some characters because they don't really know what they want to do with them. Now, in this last season, they had the perfect opportunity to kill off characters with the war against the Night King.
Yeah.
So characters they didn't really know what to do with, they could have killed them off in pretty satisfying ways that most of the fans would have been fine with. But instead, like, not a lot of people die in the war against the Night King. And so all the characters keep going, but their arcs, because the writers don't know what to do with the arcs, like, they just kind of hang around, and then they end up doing dumb things, and then the show ends, and you're like well, that
they
doesn't make
shouldn't
sense.
be there. They've awkwardly walked onto the stage.
Yeah. Like, it's just kind of like, you had the opportunity to kill them off and not have to worry about them anymore, but you kept... Like, so if you were rushing to get to the end of the season, why not use that opportunity you were given? It's because they're dumb and they don't know what they're doing.
But the whole idea of the rush in the context of Game of Thrones is it confuses. And I understand why, but I still find it confusing because
but we'll talk about why it's not justified in any.
So much like so much hype is going to waste on these 6 episodes.
Exactly.
Also,
When-
the goodwill, they must have lost. HBO would have lost so much goodwill to pulling this stuff.
when the show started, it was like, oh my god, how is this going to end? Who's going to win the Game of Thrones? And you get to the end, you're like, oh, really? That's it?
Yeah, it feels wrong.
Yeah. Also, like, George R. R. Martin, his books, love them or hate them, they have a lot of lore and backstory and character. Like, every minor character has a history. Same as, like, Lord of the Rings, like, J.R. Tolkien, like, every minor character has a lineage that goes back,
genealogy,
like 1,000 years. And George Martin's the same kind of way. And you don't see any of that in the last couple of seasons of the show because the writers don't have that blueprint of the books anymore.
And they don't particularly care.
And they don't care. And so...
Yeah, it's the power thing. It's like, why should we bother doing deep dives when we can do all other cool stuff on the screen?
Yeah, it's like they even forgot that half of Westeros exists. Like, the last season you only see, like, King's Landing and Winterfell. That's about it. Like... They completely forgot all the rest of the stuff and all the other characters that are going
and,
on.
like, all the other cool areas.
Yeah, like it's like, and like if you're really into the lore and the background of everything, tough luck.
Yeah.
Like so, it's like that. What does Thanos say? You're not the only one cursed with knowledge.
Yeah.
It's like if you know about the backstory of all the characters and the houses and the land of Westeros. Watching the show, you're just like, it's like this void. Like, there's nothing there. If you're not familiar with it, it's still disappointing, but it's like a whole nother layer of people who want to see the character and the story and the lore. It's like, oh, it's all gone. There's nothing there.
I don't want to sound too harsh to George R. R. Martin because he's only a mere mortal.
Yeah.
But I also want to lay some of this at his feet as well because...
Well...
No, hold on. Like, so I understand he's a slow writer, right?
Yeah.
Now, he gets paid the big bucks to write Game of Thrones. The problem I have is there was a time when he would just go to conventions. And, like, he'd go to nice HBO parties and stuff, and he just wouldn't write anything, and he would say how hard it is. But it's like a muscle, man. Like, I guarantee you, if he sat down and made it a practice to write for a certain amount of time a day, he would be more...
Look, it's easier said than done.
No, but I get that. But my point is, how many years has to go by before he release the last book? He's a writer by trade. This isn't something like he doesn't work at an office and then goes home and writes on his DOS computer, before bed or whatever. I'm like, this is what he does for a living. Yeah, he needs to get to it.
That's where he should put all his energy.
Like, unless he's reconciled the fact that he's going to pass away, and a ghostwriter will finish it.
Even if D&D probably thought that the books would be finished by the end of the show and they could just adapt those, and so they were probably just kicking their feet back, going like, we don't have to think about anything.
Georgie Boy's got this.
Georgie Boy's.
Also, when Game of Thrones started coming out, didn't he have to divulge secrets to HBO?
Well, I'm pretty sure that because of his age and because of the amount of time and effort and money they were putting into the show, he would have had to give them his notes for and told them where he's going with it. It's a pretty
standard thing, because I know even Neil Gaiman, who's relatively young and healthy, had to give all of American Gods 2 information to Starz.
Okay.
Like that, not all, he hasn't written it, but the
carry
broad
on
strokes.
The series,
So, like...
so, that's not unusual either, but it's like, I feel like even with that information... we don't know how much George Martin gave them and how
they might
much...
have chucked it out.
But exactly. But it's like, even with that information, they didn't really utilize... So a lot of people are saying the ending of the show is going to be the same as the ending of the books, but the way that George Martin gets there...
will be different.
Is going to be so complex and different.
And he's hurriedly doing a rewrite.
We'll talk about that way as well, where he's got the perfect opportunity to save the day, where he's like, oh, you didn't like the show? Here's the new book. Here's how it actually happened. So, but like, that's what I'm, like, even though they knew where it was going, they didn't know how to get there. And so they were just, instead of trying to work their way up to it, they just rushed and were like, this character's on this side of the map and this character's on this side of the map. They have to be together. They just teleport them, change their character 180 so that they're together at the end. It's like George R. R. Martin might have those characters be together in the end, but he might have
the journey's different.
So long of a journey to get there. So yeah, like they set up plot lines earlier in in the early seasons, and then just completely forget about them. They don't tie them up or anything. They completely abandon them. Not just things from the books, but things that were original to the show that the D&D set up. Then they just forget about them. It's like, why did you introduce that? If it wasn't in the books, and two, you weren't ever going to mention it again, and it wasn't going to come into play.
There's also this is my personal theory.
Yeah,
they're not as actually a good showrunner as people think they are.
They clearly don't care.
Especially big productions like Game of Thrones are built on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah,
right. So you got all the high quality set designers, everyone else who pitches in, but then what if D&D, without the assistance of high quality writers and people to steer them in an appropriate direction, they're just not that good.
No, I think one of the, they were probably just happy with adapting the books and were fine at that. And then once they sort of lost that blueprint, they were like, we don't know what to do. But like Nathan said before, they already had this inbuilt audience and they already had this inbuilt culture. So they're like, we can do anything and we'll get away with it.
People eat it up.
Yeah.
I would have seen...
Go on. But like, even with the cracks you start to see in season 6 and season 7, and season 7 has more problems, it's like nothing is to that terrible level of season 8 where it's just like, what have they done?
What do we think changed between season 7 and season 8?
We'll talk about Star Wars later.
Oh, no.
Is that what you were getting?
No. I was going to say, if I was HBO and I saw the kind of trend this was going on, I would kind of force a high quality... and I'm not talking about George R. Martin, but I would force a high quality fantasy writer, and there are many of them, to kind of help with the direction.
We'll talk about... I got that in my notes as well. It's like they were rushing to get it over with. They didn't know what to do. They had the money and the power and the influence to bring in anyone they wanted in the world.
Brandon Sanderson.
People would have died to write
Feist.
Game of Thrones.
Even an internet fanboy who had a blog about Game of Thrones, they could have got that guy.
They could have got us. We would have fixed it right up.
We would have fixed it.
We're
notorious movie fixers.
As you know, we are high quality Hollywood rewriters.
But it's like they could have got any fantasy author. They could have got Neil Gaiman, for Christ's sake, if he wasn't busy with American Gods.
Yeah.
They could have called him up and be like, they could have even called him up and had a meeting with him and be like, can you please help us?
But
they didn't, because it probably goes back to ego, and it probably goes back to the fact that they probably weren't that good at their job in the first place.
Realistically, they probably have the mindset, well, I'm hot shit, I don't need anyone to help me with this.
Like world building, it's fine to tell a story on screen, but world building is its own skill.
Yeah.
So like you do get some people who can make good movies and also have world building, but I guess D&D don't have both.
Yeah, exactly. They might be fine at writing television scripts, but when it comes to fleshing out the characters in the world, they don't really know what they're doing. And they required Jar Jar Martin to do that, and then once he was gone,
they needed someone to replace him.
Exactly. They should have had... Because, he worked on the show in the early scenes. I think he wrote one episode a season for the first 4 or 5 seasons. He's a producer. Like, he helped them out. And then he's like, I have to finish the books. I'm taking a step back. At that point, if they couldn't do it themselves, which is clear they couldn't, they should have got someone in to be George's canon keeper or
just a guide.
Or not even a guy who keeps it. Like, even just someone to help.
Yeah, so here's how it's done. Like as like a fantasy author, someone who's familiar with the process. Yeah. Just to say, look,
the mechanics of it. Yeah.
Like someone D&D could say, here's where we want to end up. Can you help us get there in a logical, consistent fashion?
Exactly. Also, like, I wouldn't be opposed to them coming up with more original material for the ending of the show, because they don't have George's books anymore. And even though they might have his notes for the ending, they don't have how he's going to get to the ending, and they don't have the time to get there. So I wouldn't have been opposed to them to just making some crap up.
And I think fans of the books wouldn't have been too upset by that either, because the books are still quite different.
Yeah, they're a lot different. And so, like, and then they could have worked their way up to their original ending, and it would have worked out better. But, like, a lot of original stuff they introduced that wasn't in the books, that it's come back to bite them in the ass, because they're like, we don't know how to fix this. They clearly don't know what they're doing. They're like, we introduced this thing that was in the books, or we changed something from the books. now it's come back to bite us in the ass because we have to end the show and we don't know how to fit that original idea in.
All the money in the world can't fix stupidity.
Yeah.
Basically, I know that sounds harsh.
No.
But if you have HBO money
Yeah.
and you can't fix a story problem,
Yeah.
there's more problems than just financial or production issues.
Exactly. They had all the money in the world and yeah, like they didn't. But I think the thing is, it doesn't seem like they even tried.
And we'll get to why soon.
Yeah. So yeah, and like I said, the last season feels like a lot of filler. In the early seasons of the show, the slow pace and the character moments and the dialogue, that's what the show was about.
Yeah.
Now they're at the end of the show, and there's like 10, 15-minute scenes of characters talking, and I'm just like, this is this is a waste of time.
Yeah, when
Like,
you're in the last
you have
season,
to-
and the last season 6 episodes,
Yeah.
and it's pointless feeling. Look at it, you watch.
But it's also
TikTok,
the dialogue.
Mr. Wick.
The dialogue and stuff that's happening in the scenes isn't really important. One, because they're bad writers, and two, because they're going to throw it out the window next scene anyway. So it's kind of like, no, you're clearly trying to rush this. It's okay if you just go to the next scene. You don't have to like pretend you're still the old show you were. And it's the same goes with the comedic scenes. Game of Thrones has always had some dark humor and comedic scenes. But like the last episode, the finale of Game of Thrones, this epic event of television, this pop culture event, and there's like funny little sitcom scenes. I'm like, this is the end of your show. This is someone like
Taking it more
gravitas.
seriously.
yeah, it's like when you play the Game of Thrones, you either win or you die. Like, and now the people have even there's
Have
so
you got
many
Kramer
yeah,
bursting
exactly.
in?
Like people have like started putting like Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld music over these scenes because it's just like, what the hell? Like the best thing to come out of this season are the memes. Just as with The Last Jedi. Just the same with The Last Jedi. The only good thing to come out of that movie were the memes. Because this is so much stupidity that all you can do is like laugh about it and point out how dumb it all is. So yeah, like D&D, we're clearly rushing to tie everything up, but we end up left with more questions than answers.
You know what?
Like,
So
they're like, oh, okay, we have to tie everything up, but then they keep creating more problems that are going to, and especially at the last episode where you find out where everyone is and where everyone goes, you're like, well, that just creates more problems now.
So I'm assuming I'm going to answer my own question before I answer it. I'm assuming that this is for contractual reasons, but I would assume that if D&D wanted to leave Game of Thrones because they had other opportunities, which we'll discuss later,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be much better for HBO to just get new showrunners and say
Exactly.
we want more seasons?
So
we want 2 more. D&D are done,
This
but
is-
I'm assuming because contractual reasons,
Yeah.
they're probably like, well, we get to finish up
exactly.
the show.
I've got it in my notes here, which we'll get to later, but it's like a lot of people have been talking about how if they clearly didn't care, they were clearly rushing to get out, but if you didn't care or if you wanted to rush it more than it could...
Just leave.
Just or, like we said, get someone to help you.
Yeah.
Take a step back, say we're still the showrunners, we're still the producers, we still make all the money, we still make all the decisions, our name's still on the banner. But, maybe get someone to come in and help and,
Grease the engine a little bit.
yeah. So
Just pay the contract out, man. HBO
Yeah.
knows better.
exactly. So like another thing is like they took 2 years off for this final season. And it's like, was that I know the season had big battle moments and lots of CGI and stuff, but it's like it's just more of a sting, for
You have to wait
audience.
so much
It's like,
time.
Wait for this.
It's like I know like the production. See, the production was fantastic. Like no one's arguing that. Like the
Although
production.
apparently a battle was too dark.
Yeah, that was bad. But like the production value, the cinematography, the music, the costumes, just
The music's always been a high point of the show.
like it's just incredible. And
Yeah.
so that in terms of that, the show is still 10 out of 10. It's just the writing is so poor that it just brings everything down to the lowest level, and it's really sad. Same with the performances. The actors are all doing their best with really poor material. They're doing really great work. And so it's really sad for fans to have to kind of say, like, look, it's the same with The Last Jedi. Like, look,
Yeah.
it's not your guys, it's not the cast and crew's fault. It's the writers and directors' fault.
It's
like,
the Jake Skywalker issue.
and in this case, it's the showrunner's fault. Like, it's like, they worked so... It took them 7 months to build the King's Landing set. Like, it's just... an insane amount of blood, sweat, and tears went into this final season and this whole 10 years of show to end up with fluff at the end.
Yeah.
To fizzle out.
See, you think there's some guy at the top of...
That's the biggest sin that D&D committed. They took 10 years of goodwill. They took 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears of cast and crew. They took 10 years of fans' emotions. They took 10 years of HBO's money. They took 10 years of everyone's time.
And they just went... And you can guarantee the people at the top of HBO probably thought it was gold as well.
Well, it's the typical... Unfortunately, HBO is doing the typical Disney reaction where they're like, look, it's a bit divided. Half people hate it, half people like it. You know, we stand behind it. And we're like, no, it's bad. Most people think it's bad. It's objectively bad.
I think...
Some people like it, that's fine. But it's bad.
I would have a lot of respect for HBO or any company like Disney who puts out something that sucks.
Yeah.
To be like, yeah, look... We tried.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the best product.
We made a mistake.
We made a mistake. We're going to do better in the future.
We'll talk about it later, but I hope HBO steps up their game for the future because there's a lot of Game of Thrones spin-offs in the works. So they really need to take this reaction as not just a bunch of salty fans, but people who were emotionally invested in
Look, man, 10 years is a long time.
Of this journey.
10 years is a long time for a crappy payoff.
Just for a couple of rich douchebags to be like, we don't care.
It's not the same because Twin Peaks wasn't going for 10 years straight. But at least when Twin Peaks ended, we were kind of like, not bad.
Oh, you mean the return?
Yeah, the return. We had to wait a long time for it, but at least when it was done, I mostly felt positive.
That's different as well because you're like, David Lynch, even though his vision might not been what we wanted, it's like, okay,
it's authentically David
it's
Lynch.
Like he's doing his own thing.
It was certainly something.
Yeah.
That's what we can all agree on. It was certainly something.
But it's like for 10 years of a premium like fantasy show to just kind of like, I think that's another bad, like such a disappointing thing is like you can see the greatness underneath it all because you've got the production value and you've got the great cast, but on top of that, you got the world that George Martin set up for you.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, it's just there under the surface.
It's a
you can
massive
just see
fantasy
it.
playground.
Yeah, so it's like, if it wasn't for those idiots ruining the writing and the character development of the show, like it'd be really easy to kind of reconstruct what they have into something workable, into something decent. But they ruined it. So,
like you said though, like even if all the characters ended up in the same position at the end of the show, but they just extended it those extra couple of seasons to really flesh everything out and take your time.
We'll talk about that now.
An epilogue.
Like, it's such a shame that all these hardworking people, like people put their 10 years of their life to make this show happen, just for it to end up being rushed and poorly thought out, or not thought out at all. And to turn into nonsense at the end.
Yeah.
So I was willing to give when the season started, I was willing to give D&D the benefit of the doubt. I was like, they have to finish. They're running out of time and money. I understand they kind of have to finish it. They can't do this show forever. But as the series went on, I was starting to understand how bad it was. And I was kind of lying to myself, even after the war against the battle for Winterfell. I was kind of like, no, I understand. It wasn't great, but But yeah, as it went on, I was just like, no, I'm not having this anymore. I've had enough. So I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt up until a certain point, up until the point where it was clear they were giving us the finger.
Yeah. One thing I will say though is there was some sentiment on Twitter that Arya, her arc was a Mary Sue-like arc. Now, even as someone I've read the books, and I'm assuming that her character arc follows a similar trajectory in the TV show. I don't agree with that at all.
So, look, Arya was my favorite character up until she became a ninja assassin, and then she became bland. And I think the way George R. R. Martin will do it will be really interesting.
Yeah, because in the
there
books,
might be similarities.
She suffers in the books. I feel like she earns those abilities.
But in the show, once she gets to that assassin, like a ninja point, she becomes boring. And that's a lot of the characters in the show.
She hasn't quite reached that point in the books.
Exactly.
Either.
Jon becomes a non-character after maybe after the Battle of Bastards. He does nothing anymore. like, you know, he's just a non-character anymore. And I think that's D&D's fault. Now, George Martin in the books, he'll definitely keep that complexity and those character growth going. Even if Arya becomes an unstoppable faceless assassin, she'll still have some sort of arc and some sort of growth. Whereas in the show, it's like she becomes boring. Like, I was like, oh yeah, Arya's a badass. I love her. She's my favorite character. And now I'm kind of like, oh, she's boring. And that's the problem with all the characters in the show. So yeah, I was willing to give D&D the benefit of the doubt until I was just like, no, I've had enough. Then I found out HBO offered them more time and more money, and they said no.
Yeah.
We've been hinting at this.
So
For a very specific reason.
So D&D from the start said they only wanted 7 seasons, which one is too short,
Yeah.
like, for this kind of show.
Again, it goes back to the argument
But
of, if you only want
it's
7
clear-
seasons, you do 7
Exactly.
seasons, and
But
then we get someone else
it's
to
clear
take
that
over.
when they started the show, how did they know they were going to be able to fit into 7 seasons? They assumed the last 2 books would come out. They could have just quickly adapt those last 2 seasons. They're pricks. They're assholes.
The thing is, how does HBO
Like,
give
this
them...
is not just fans being salty. These guys
Yeah.
clearly thought they were hot shit, and they weren't.
How does HBO give them the authority to say this show's only going to last
I think
this
it was
amount of...
contractually.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
But
like
I can
HBO
kinda-
should reserve the right to continue the show after their contract's done.
I can kind of
That's true.
I can kind of understand the 7 seasons thing if their perspective on it was, we'll show run this, but only as adaptions. We don't want to have to put in the groundwork. If they were upfront and say, we don't want to have to put in the legwork.
but then HBO probably would have said take a walk. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a miracle that they got pushed to 8 seasons at all. And I think that's one of the reasons that season 8 is so short and so rushed.
Yeah.
It's because they were like, our contract's fulfilled. We're only here for the money.
Now, James, could you inform us as to why they rejected...
Okay, before we get that, right? So George R. R. Martin has always said that, you know, the show could go for 12, 13 seasons. Like, he's always said, like, you know, they should keep going.
Yeah, which is feels correct.
And I think the way the show was going up to season 7, even with its problems, it should have been at least 10 seasons. 1 season for the war against the Night King, 1 season for the war against Cersei and Daenerys taking the throne, and 1 season for the aftermath and tying everything up. And
Yeah, in a nice little bow.
yeah. So, like, this 7, 8 seasons nonsense is just ridiculous. So it's clear that D&D didn't care, and now we're getting to the point, if you haven't realized already, where we're starting to see this backlash from fans that's very similar to the Last Jedi backlash, where it's very clear, like, there's even a petition to reboot the last season, remake it.
I mean, which I don't agree with generally.
It's the same. We talked about when Last Jedi came out. I hate The Last Jedi, but I didn't sign any petitions for it to be remade or for it to be struck from the canon. Like, I'm more realistic than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same sort of reaction. It's people who have invested a large chunk of their lives and money, and, you know,
And they feel like they've been ripped off.
Yeah, exactly.
Because remember, in
And
a
it's
large
not
way,
just-
people subscribe to HBO. We pay for that
Exactly.
production.
It's not just an entitlement of like, well, I pay for HBO and I watched the show and took time out of my life, and so I deserve a good ending, and I didn't like your ending, and therefore you owe me something. It's
Start
not
again.
It's not. Yeah, it's not that. It's like, we loved these characters. We loved this world. We loved being involved. We loved talking to people. It's the water cooler thing. It was an event. It was a worldwide. It was the biggest show on television, and it brought fantasy to a mainstream capacity, even more so maybe than Lord of the Rings, to an adult audience at least.
Yeah, no,
anyway.
I get you, yeah.
So it's like, and then for the showrunners to clearly not just make an ending we didn't like, but to clearly not care and
To
deliberately
disregard what made the show great to begin with.
almost deliberately tank it. And we start to see this kind of Last Jedi style reaction from fans, but also from the cast. Like, people have been posting the way they post Mark Hamill interviews and see, he was warning us. The same people are posting Game of Thrones cast interviews, and you can see the actors are really just.
I don't know if this is legit or if it was faked, but
Yeah.
there was some interviewer interviewing what's the lady's name who plays Daenerys?
Amelia Clarke.
Yeah, and someone saying that they like Daenerys because she's so pure and she has such good intent, and
Yeah.
the look on her face
Yeah,
is
yeah.
like, don't
Oh, no.
say anything,
There's,
don't say
one,
anything.
There's one where the interviewer asks her like, how without spoiling anything, what was your reaction when you read your or when you read the ending? And she went, like now you could take that as she was sad the show was ending.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think it's similar to Last Jedi. It's like it's clear a lot of the actors were just like, this is really dumb, and like Mark Hamill, we're gonna do our job to the best of our ability.
But it's
we
Jake
don't
Skywalker.
believe. Yeah, we don't believe. It's the same with a lot of the other actors. Conleth Hill, who plays Varys, was kind of vocal about how Varys used to be the smartest character. Always
He was
had-
always the smartest dude in the room.
yeah, always knew what was going on. And the last couple of seasons, he's been sidelined, and then he just became really dumb at the end of the show. Same with Tyrion. Tyrion was always one of the smartest people in Westeros, and at the end of the show, he just became really dumb. And it's just, you can see like the parallels to our other favorite franchise.
That it subverted our expectations.
Exactly. This D&D's insane ideas of like, well, you thought one thing was going to happen. The fans were speculating one thing, but guess what? This happens instead. Like, aren't we so smart? It's like, no, that's
Kathleen
not smart.
Kennedy thought they were smart.
Exactly.
That's not.
So
Yeah, it's like
it's-
subverting our expectations.
Yeah.
Isn't smart
George-
if it's not servicing the story in the direction it should be headed.
George R.R. Martin, the author of the Game of Thrones novels that the show is based on, has been on record in interviews, is on camera saying that if you're writing a story and the readers and the fans guess who the murderer is, and you're writing the story and you change who the murderer is because the fans guessed it,
That's not smart.
then you've set up all these clues and foreshadowing.
They're now meaningless.
That now meaningless, and you've just ruined your story. And that's what D&D have done. George R. R. Martin set up all these characters, all this world, all this politics, all this lore, just for D&D to be like, well, we don't really remember any of that. We don't care about any of that.
It's a TV version
And
of
all the fans have already figured out who's going to die, who's going to live, who's going to become king, who's not going to. But so we're just going to throw the script pages in a blender
It's-
and be like, haha, you
yeah,
didn't see that coming.
It's a TV version of when you go to shake your friend's hand, pull it away, and go psych.
yeah. It's a classic subverting expectations and like changing characters on a dime for just because you think you're smart.
Yeah.
So this ultimately comes to, because D&D got hired to make their own Star Wars trilogy.
Alarm.
No, we already did the Last Jedi.
Do another one.
I'll put another one. All right, another one. Okay, so
So bad. Disney needs to stop ruining franchises.
it's like Disney listens to our show and
I told
goes,
you, Bob Iger listens. We've been over this.
and they're like, oh, those guys don't like what we're doing. We're gonna double down on that. They proved us.
Lean into
They proved
it.
us wrong again. We'll lean into it.
I've had enough of these boys. Let's ruin
Yeah.
Game of Thrones.
Like, now, to be fair, no one hated D&D this much
No,
like a few years ago.
that's right.
Even though now people are going back and starting to dig up some stuff that they did quite a few years ago that kind of pointed to where they were heading. But, like, even Disney probably just like, oh, the Game of Thrones guys are really successful.
Yeah.
Let's give them
Yeah,
the...
it's definitely their fault. Game of Thrones is huge.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that's kind of I guess a smart decision on their part. It's like Game of Thrones is successful. These guys show run Game of Thrones. They're big names now. Let's give them Star Wars.
I mean, I can get that from a business perspective.
Yeah,
but
as we've discussed many times on this show and many times before that on the old show, like, it's clear Disney has no clue what they're doing. It's clear when they hire someone, they don't want them to make a movie. They want them to churn out a factory film and slap a name on. They don't really care. They don't really care about the world or the characters or the lore. just in the same way that D&D didn't care
Yeah.
about the world and the characters and the lore when they made Game of Thrones.
So it's a match made in heaven.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was gonna
exactly.
say. I'm sure it's
It's-
like if Kathleen Kennedy could see how bad they take Game of Thrones, she'd be like, "You're hired."
This is the thing: is people are going, "Oh, I hope they get fired from Star Wars now because of how clearly how much they ruined Game of Thrones." I'm like, no, Kathleen Kennedy's like completely oblivious to this.
look-
and I'm sure like this and this fits in with where Star Wars has already gone.
Yeah.
like it's already been ruined. These guys coming in, it's like
It'd
like
be-
you said, match made in heaven.
It'd be
Like, it's
good karma.
perfect.
It'd be good karma if they were not allowed to make a Star Wars trilogy after
Yeah, they
after
definitely-
abandoning Game of Thrones
Yeah.
for Star Wars. It'd be good karma for them for
That's
her
true.
to say no, you can't.
Yeah.
But that won't happen.
Probably they'll they'll at least get to do one, but yeah, probably they'll just be given free reign in as much as you can on a Disney film.
So
but,
what I will say is, I do believe they will have at least more than one draft of their script. So
Well-
that's a tick in the right
well,
box.
they don't have anyone to copy off. They don't have George R. R. Martin to copy off. So, but see, we were talking a few weeks ago about how Ryan Johnson had his own Star Wars trilogy that was supposed to be coming out, and then the D&D was supposed to have their own trilogy.
Are they working
And
together
then
now?
apparently they were, because Disney was restructuring their ideas, they were going to be working together. But now there's more news saying that no, there's actually more trilogies planned.
The rumor is that there's a Knights of the Old Republic trilogy.
Exactly. So that's another thing. So it's like if Ryan Johnson might be working on his own trilogy, these guys D&D might be working on their own trilogy, and then the Knights of the Old Republic trilogy might be separate again. It's like, again, I mean, it always comes back to our argument of they don't know what they're doing with how they said they were going to stop and take a step back, but they've already got these trilogies. They're going to churn them out. They already Ryan Johnson ruined Star Wars. They got him to make his own trilogy. D&D ruined Game of Thrones. They got them to make a Star Wars trilogy. Like, it's just,
Yeah,
it's
it's just sad.
just sad and just like typical.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, there's still 2 books to come. Like, it's not just one book.
Yeah, look,
George R. R. Martin hasn't even finished the second to last book, and he hasn't even started the last book.
we need to either he's going to release. So when he writes these books, he writes them as one, and then he splits them in the middle.
Yeah.
So he would consider it one book that's going to be split into 2 halves, like the other ones he's written.
No, there's 2 separate books.
So there's going to be 4 books to come, or
Technically, yeah. Unless he doesn't. I mean,
Unless
it
he
depends
doesn't
how
split.
long they are.
The last one,
Because the last one was split because it was so long.
and the last one had 2 different editions. The last one had the split edition,
Yeah.
which, funnily enough, was aimed at American audiences. That's true. This is true.
Yeah.
And you could also buy. We went over to the UK and we saw they were selling the whole edition.
Yeah.
and it was absolutely massive.
Oh, yeah.
and I was like, "That's cool."
But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the last 4 books have all been like part 1, part 2, part
yeah,
1,
they
part
have.
2, so.
But you can
Okay.
also buy them in single.
I think you can buy the
volumes.
single
Yeah.
volumes as well.
But yeah, so like he says 2 books, but maybe he means 1, maybe he
No,
means 4.
it's 2. I think it's like 2 separate
4 books.
books. Yeah, like 2 separate books from start to finish, but that might be cut into 2 volumes
Yeah.
each. So it might be 4 books, physically 4 books, but I'm assuming they'll release
thematically
them.
2 books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And George R. R. Martin's 70 something,
you need to
70.
But he's
People-
not a healthy 70.
No,
Let's
no,
put
He's
it that
also
way.
he's a large
He's not a
gentleman.
healthy 70.
People
yeah.
need to be realistic. He might finish 1 book. He's not finishing the next.
Exactly.
So he needs to. I personally believe that there's too much money tied up in Game of Thrones
Yeah.
for them not to get a ghostwriter. So I'm sure he's got a wealth of notes. Like when Robert Jordan passed away,
yeah.
they got Brandon Sanderson took his notes and he finished the Wheel of Time franchise. It's going to be a similar situation. for
I don't
George.
see why he would. I don't see why he wouldn't hire someone to help him finish them.
Pride, maybe.
Look, I know he said that while he's alive, he's the only one who's going to
Yeah.
be working on them. When he's dead, I'm not sure if he has any explicit instructions for people not to work on it. I'm going to assume any deal he's made with his publisher might involve someone else working on it after his death. But yeah, it would be a shame if he
Look, financially speaking, there's no way the publishing company lawyers would let him have an
Yeah.
unfinished franchise with such
yeah,
wealth,
especially
potential.
after the show, and like that's another thing. Is like the ending of the show sucked, and the books might not even ever end.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we may never see the proper ending to this story.
So can I point
It's
out
so
something?
sad.
there was a blog post by the guy who writes Penny Arcade, who said that Game of Thrones is amusing to him because he was actively buying fantasy books when they first started coming out, and Game of Thrones was seen as a niche. Like a niche market. It was the one that had all the violence and intrigue and sex when you didn't want to read about like the more classical fantasy style ones. So every now and again, people would talk about Game of Thrones, and he would just be like that's interesting that people care about that because it used to just be.
But that's the
niche
thing.
material.
The books were popular before the show, but the show catapulted the books. Into like a stratosphere, like they became so popular.
They were popular in fantasy circles. But if we go back 20 years and you would ask a random guy on the street, "Hey, do you like A Song of Fire and Ice?" They'd be like, "I don't know what that is."
Yeah, exactly. But like, this is the thing: is like people have been saying like maybe this is Martin's plan all along. Like he was going to wait for the end of the show, then release the book, and that way he could be like, you know what? That's over. Like, because you could imagine him releasing the book in the middle of season 6 of the show. And then them trying to finish the show, and him trying to market the book, but he's also come out and said like, no, that's ridiculous.
I think people give Georgie Boy too much credit.
Yeah. Honestly, releasing the final books would probably increase his lifespan. Yeah, all the stress that'd be off his shoulders.
Yeah,
or he would die a day later.
But like, it's one of the, like again, this is I guess coming into more fan speculation, but. Since the end of the show, like he's definitely come out and he seems more upbeat
because he knows he can write something that people won't hate as much as they hate.
So it's like he's defended the show because he's not going to
contractually obliged.
Yeah,
to defend
exactly.
The show.
So, but it's like he now has the freedom to be like I can release the my
what
version
not to
of the
do.
story. Yeah, exactly. And also the fans. Yeah, the fans have pointed me in the right direction of what not to do, but also, like, there's no way I can upset them the same way. So,
I suppose there's more empathy in the books, so even if he did come to the same place, it happens over a slower pace.
Yeah, he's a more detail-oriented author. Like, obviously, like we said, whatever end his characters come to, the journey to get there is going to be a lot more complex, a lot more grey, a lot more
his characters
well-developed.
His characters think a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like, if they make stupid decisions in the TV show...
It's going to be justified.
Those decisions might be more logical through the eyes of the characters in the book.
Yeah. So, like, it's just so disappointing. Like, this was one of the greatest TV shows in history. Like, it was one of the biggest events in pop culture. And it just kind of fizzled out, and now I'm just kind of disappointed. And like I said at the start of the show, I can't even recommend it anymore. It used to be, you're not watching Game of Thrones? Oh my God, you have to watch it. Now that's all done, I would like to sort of rewatch it all as a sort of binge back to back. But I'm kind of like, it feels very unappealing now. I'm like, should I just stop after season 5 or season 6 now? Or should I just begrudgingly just watch the last couple of seasons? Like, it's so sad.
I wouldn't watch it as a whole. I probably just would skip it and go watch Cobra Kai again.
But it's like, and we never know if we're going to see the ending of the books, and it's like,
it's the Star Wars thing. It's like, why watch the new ones when I can just rewatch the classics?
Yeah,
it's like when it was
just so sad though.
I mean, we have the untitled prequels and other spin-offs.
George R. R. Martin has said that he's working on 5 prequels to Game of Thrones with HBO. That they're in some stage of development.
That's why the books aren't getting released.
Yeah, exactly. He's off doing TV stuff.
He needs to get Stephen King to finish the book.
Yeah, just churn it out. I did see that George Martin said he's going to be at WonderCon in New Zealand in June of next year, and he's like, if I don't bring the manuscript of the next book with me, you have permission to lock me up and until I finish the book, which is probably just hyperbole.
I'm not a heckler. But if I met him in person, I'd tell him to hurry the hell up.
Yeah, but it's like that. He might be hinting that he's almost done.
Yeah, there's a rumor. No. Look, there's actually a rumor.
He might be talking shit, but like he might be, if he's saying I'm going to be in New Zealand in June and I must have the manuscript with me, he might be saying, I think I'm almost there.
There's a rumor that he's actually finished the books.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't want to release them because he's worried about fan backlash. Now,
there's that, and also, that he was waiting for the end of the show to release them.
I personally think that's silly because I think that...
He's come out and said that's ridiculous.
Yeah, but I mean, what else would he say,
That's true.
You're going to admit to being a giant coward?
He's not gonna.
Like, I personally think that's not true, but it also wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, no.
If he's spent so much of his time writing this thing, imagine spending so much time of your life making something.
Yeah.
the fear of ridicule would be enormous.
Oh yeah.
Especially after the blowback.
Look, even when the books end, there's gonna be a backlash from readers. But I don't, like we said, I don't think there's anything he could do that could be as bad as what's happened in the show.
Yeah.
So there's only one prequel that's had any sort of news around it. All the other prequels are in very early stages of development. There's one prequel that's apparently starring Naomi Watts, which there's not a lot of news around it, but it's apparently set thousands of years before the Game of Thrones show, and apparently will be about Bran the Builder building the wall, and will be about the Long Night and the original
That's cool.
White Walkers. So I think that's a really great idea.
Yeah. I just hope they don't stretch these things out too long and unstay them.
Yeah. But like because it's so far back that you don't really need to connect it to Game of Thrones, which is good because they can do whatever they want. They can cast whoever they want. They can go in any weird direction. And also it ties into that really rich lore and backstory that George Martin set up that I'm really interested in. And since the ending of this show did so poorly on, like, especially the Night King and his stuff, like, going back, even though it feels like too little too late, it'll be interesting to see this maybe fleshed out a bit more. D&D are not show running this show, so thank God for that.
It's like the Silmarillion thing. It's like the Silmarillion is a book inside Lord of the Rings, and it's like back canon.
It's like a Bible within the.
But if they the mythos of Westeros is kind of like that in the sense that they could revisit this early stuff.
Oh yeah,
and they already have these powerful characters who have personalities which reverberate up into current Westeros.
Yeah,
and like they can play with that, and it still connects to the main entry.
Yeah,
but it's so far removed that it doesn't matter if they screw something up. Yeah, because it doesn't have an impact on the main franchise.
It won't connect to the main show in a 1,000 years.
So they can take risks with it without the risks having a negative impact on the main franchise.
Yeah. So like, I just hope HBO takes this fan backlash more seriously than Disney. It doesn't seem like they are. Obviously, they're being very...
They joked about it. Did you see the joke they made where... Do you remember when everyone was just so excited for the first season?
Yeah.
I think they're just like... I think they like the ending. I think they approve of what D&D did. But they can't say anything to the contrary.
It's the Disney problem. If they can't really say, we didn't like that, sorry about that. But like, it's just like... If the books ever do... end, which probably won't happen, but like, will there be another adaptation of the books?
No,
I don't think so.
And if there is, it wouldn't come out for another 20 plus years, because if HBO is doing all these prequels, they have the rights, they can't be a competing Game of Thrones.
Yeah, no, it won't work.
So like, but like, it'd be interesting to see, in 20, 30 years, if someone else gets the rights, another streaming service, whatever. And, if the books are finished, which they probably won't be, and they do a Song of Ice and Fire, like, reboot and completely just do more accurate to the books.
Yeah.
And adapt that. Like, that's obviously wishful thinking and all that, but that means this Game of Thrones will be this weird curiosity.
Yeah.
Even though it was so great for so long and has so many great elements in it.
This kind of...
Maybe we can get some dire wolves that don't look like husky dogs.
You know what just kind of interests me in the upcoming...
Maybe we could get more direwolves in the show instead of them just like having one scene and then never appearing again.
This is kind of a tangential point, but kind of makes me interested in the Lord of the Rings TV show that's going on.
This is my next point. Sorry, go on, Callum.
Oh, I was just going to say, now, as far as I'm aware, this isn't going to be a retelling of the Lord of the Rings story, but... The fact that the world is entirely mapped out, like histories, the law's done. I'm like, so it's just going to be interesting to see how well they managed to map it out, considering that Jeff Bezos is a neckbeard himself.
And I guarantee you, Amazon's learning lessons right this moment.
Yeah, they're writing notes.
Well, yeah, depending on how far Lord of the Rings the show's in production.
I'm just hoping they get nerds on point. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, like I need someone who takes it so seriously. Who speaks Elvish? They need to be on board.
Yeah, I don't know who's show running.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I need them on site, making sure everything's like Tolkien appropriate.
But see, like, then you can go either way with that. You can have someone who's so attached to the source material that they're willing to make no concessions or no.
Well, that's the good thing about the new show is it's not going to be Lord of the Rings.
Exactly, but like that's what I'm saying is like there are people who are going to be like, no, that's not canon, even though it's not about.
I think what Callum meant, it needs to be canon consistent.
No,
consistent.
You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. there are fans, like die-hard fans, who make stuff based on stuff they're fans of. And that's good because you want someone who's passionate about the adaptation and about the original material. You don't want someone who's blasé about it, or who
Like Ryan Johnson.
yeah, or who deliberately wants to screw it up. But then you have people who are so obsessed with the source material, the canon, the originals, that they're willing to make no changes or concessions or compromises, even though it will definitely make a better show or movie.
I'm not saying I put these people in charge. I'm just saying they need to be...
No, but that's what I'm saying. There's a double-edged sword side to this, where it's like, yes, there should be, like you said, there should be someone running the Lord of the Rings show that is passionate about the books and the lore and the backstory and the characters, but you also don't want them to be so obsessed with it that if someone says, look, you know, that might not work in a TV show...
Yeah, no, I mean,
they go, no.
I'd have these people on as advisors.
It's the Tom Bombadil argument. Like, there are people so obsessed with Lord of the Rings that they're like, I can't believe Tom Bombadil wasn't in the movies.
Yeah,
That was the best. Peter Jackson made the best call when he cut that character out, and when he cut out all the songs and all the other stuff.
No. What I mean is, these people should be advisors, not running the movie, not being directors.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, these people, like the director, should be able to say, "How do we approach this in Middle Earth?"
Yeah,
and then they can say, "Well, here, and here," or what is actually Elvish for how we.
That definitely has to be a part.
Like that's
of
what I mean. I
production.
like someone to give a kind of. I say authenticity, but like someone to give an actual Tolkien perspective on how things are going to map out.
That definitely,
which is what Game of Thrones lacks, is like that kind of that appropriate George R. R. Martin understanding of the world, which is why season 8 sucks so bad.
Yeah.
Well, we are almost out of time.
Well, we're definitely out of time.
But
we're not even close to finishing this conversation. So if you're listening live, stick around for Matt's show Car Talk. Otherwise, if you're listening to the podcast, we'll be right back with more Lord of the Rings discussion and Batman casting news later on in the show.
One thing that annoyed me was there's not enough black people in Game of Thrones. I'm like, that's true.
Dude, we talked about this the other week. I said there's an overwhelmingly diverse cast of characters considering it's a high fantasy.
Yeah. I'm like, number one, that's true. I guess there should be more. But B, it's based on European Middle Ages wars.
Exactly.
Like,
you're lucky there's Spain, all right?
Yeah, you're lucky there's a whole Asia continent. Usually, even Lord of the Rings doesn't have an Asia. Well, actually, it does. The elephants come from that.
Yes, that's true. But
see, fucking George Martin's just copying... All right,
That's because Tolkien didn't play fucking games, son. When he writes fantasy, he only does it once, and it's perfect.
What's his name? Jokin Rolkin Tolkien.
No, it's like he wrote fantasy. Okay, he wrote a children's fantasy novel first, The Hobbit.
Yeah, and then
he's like,
I'm gonna fucking.
He's like, okay, one time, and it's going to be flawless for the rest of time. Like,
I'm gonna.
Now we're recording this.
Now I have to, because this is all recording, so I have to keep all this in the show.
200 years later, people are still going to be pointing at Lord of the Rings as the fantasy story.
Yeah, motherfucker. He's just like, oh, you like that little children's story about the little funny hobbits?
No, he's a serious one.
Fucking thousands of years of history of war and gods.
Supplementary material.
Yeah. And how a ring corrupts man and brings about the end of Age of Magic. He's like, suck on that. And George Martin's like, oh, okay, I can do that.
By the way, it's like, when all this is happening, I'm also translating Beowulf.
Okay.
And he created the Elvish language, right?
He did.
And the Orcish, yeah.
Because George R. R. Martin, even with all his world building and lore,
to be fair,
he didn't create the Dothraki or
Tolkien was Tolkien was professionally a linguist, so it's not the same.
Yeah.
Like, that's again, like, he wasn't even a professional author. He was like, his main thing was he taught linguistics. So it's like, he wrote fantasy novels on the side.
But he took that shit seriously.
It's like the painter who only paints once.
He did all the maps and the Elvish
he did all
runes.
It's like, you know the book I gave you, the Lord of the Rings one I gave you?
Yeah.
The thing on the side was his own design.
Yeah, all the all the
illustrations.
The Elvish, the illustrations.
Okay, enough rambling. Welcome back to the Tuesday review.
We're back. So we were talking about the Lord of the Rings Amazon series that's been announced. There's not a lot of news about it. I don't. They've said it's not a readaptation of the
That's
Lord of the
correct,
Rings
so-
books.
I'm
It's just based in the world.
Now, from what I understand, and this is old information, so I could be wrong, but I thought the estate of Tolkien's estate was
Yeah.
like, you can do whatever you want because, Bezos money.
Mm.
But I'm pretty sure they decided not to do a Lord of the Rings retread.
That's the
Which is
smartest.
a smart move. 'cause-
I'm doing some research as I say this, but I was sure I read somewhere that it was about Strider as a young man.
yeah, so
Oh,
Aragorn.
I hope not. I wouldn't like that.
Well, I
See,
mean,
that's too close of a prequel. See, it comes into the prequel problems.
Aragorn has an interesting history. So
No, yeah, I like it, but it's like now you have to, like you can't get Viggo Mortensen and play him. It's obviously not connected to the movies. Like it's too many problems. Like they should do what the Game of Thrones prequels are doing and set it thousands of years before. That way they can just play around in the world without having to worry about
Wouldn't it be
connecting.
interesting if they did a Silmarillion show?
Yeah,
As
they
in,
should have
they
just
could
done
have 10
that.
seasons. Each season covers a certain period
Yeah.
of time in the Silmarillion. That way, you also get a varied,
Yeah.
varied themes, varied stories.
And that way they can explore things that weren't really explored in the Lord of the Rings movies. More of
Yeah.
the gods and the wizards and
you could start it off by. Did they have Sam opening the Silmarillion in the movies?
I don't think so.
I think one of the characters. I think it's Sam when they get to Rivendell.
In the
Uh,
books.
Yeah, he actually Elrond shows him.
That actually, there might be in a deleted scene or something. Yeah.
I think it's Elrond shows him the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
Because the Silmarillion, while being an actual published book,
Yeah.
is also a fictional book in Lord of the Rings, which
Yeah.
is a history of Middle Earth,
Yeah.
as written by the elves. I think.
Which they pulled that shit in the finale of Game of Thrones, but didn't work.
yeah, no, you're gonna have that Tolkien level.
Well,
Yeah,
anyway.
I may have been wrong. The current plans seem to have it set during the Second Age, which is
So it
when
is
the sort of
set-
the rings were formed and
So that's like
Okay.
semi Silmarillion ish.
so like a different time period altogether.
That's good.
Anyway, that'd be
Yeah.
fun. But like the idea of the Silmarillion would be good for TV
Yeah.
because it's like there's so many different stories. It'd almost
Well,
be like an anthology show.
Now, Nathan, you might have to look this up as well. I don't really
Look
remember.
this up, Jamie.
Yeah, I don't really remember.
I'll let you-
Apes are strong, man.
Was that DMT in Lord of the Rings? Was that DMT in Lord
Apes
of the
are
Rings?
so strong, man.
I'll let
It's
you two
crazy.
nerds talk, and I'll just do the research.
Now I forgot what I was going to say. I was doing too much DMT, smoking too much weed.
Looking up.
Oh, yeah. Look up if... I think when Peter Jackson was making Lord of the Rings, the Tolkien estate was like, yeah, you can work with Lord of the Rings, but Silmarillion is off limits. So you can't mention any of the gods or the wizards' names.
The
or
Tolkien estate guard their IPs jealously,
which was really annoying and a bit dumb. And then I think when The Hobbit came out, they had sort of come around and were like, okay. And that's why in The Hobbit goes a little bit overboard with naming the orcs and all this and stuff that's not really relevant and stuff that wasn't in the book, because Peter Jackson was like, oh, now I can use all this stuff. Let's bring that in, even though it wasn't important to the book.
Christopher Tolkien prevented anyone, especially Peter Jackson, from adapting the Silmarillion in any form of media. But he's recently retired, leaving it open for his predecessor.
now.
Predecessor?
No, his successor.
Successor, sorry. To possibly use the Silmarillion.
So-
The problem is the Silmarillion is not a property that will be easily translated to television. As much as I would like to see
I mean, he wouldn't let Peter Jackson even take a name out of it for
Which
Lord
is-
of the Rings
which
for
is
someone to
kinda
go,
shitty,
which
yeah.
is dumb. Especially because this is the point I want to talk about. Especially because Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, for me, and I think for everyone around the world, is the definitive film adaptation of the books.
I would be surprised if anyone tries to adapt that ever again.
In 100 years, if they try to remake those movies, I don't think they're going to be as good. Like, that's the definitive, that's the one version. Like, that's the best
the
version
one
you're gonna
version
get.
to rule them all.
Exactly. It might not be completely word for word accurate,
But the spirit is there, and it's so strong.
And just the visual style is so iconic.
just
Yeah.
the slight gayness.
Oh, but that's accurate to the novel.
That's
I was gonna
accurate.
say,
That's what I'm saying.
In fact, they
That
toned
adds
it, they
to it.
toned
No,
it down.
they toned it down significantly.
You know, we were talking.
as someone who reads it in modern times,
Yeah.
there's a lots of, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Well-
I'm not going to quote exactly, but
No,
lots
no.
of gentle hand holding,
Well,
deep eye gazing.
Tolkien wrote it as a sort of exploration of brotherhood and male friendship because he was in the First World War.
When, and don't get me wrong, but this is like, I don't mean this in a sort of, feminist way, but back when male toxicity or toxic masculine behavior wasn't such an issue.
No,
guys could hold hands, like it was fine in the story,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, there's very little toxic males in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
in that sense. But I think that it's also important to remember that Lord of the Rings was written with an earlier time in mind. A lot of the old fantasy heroes,
exactly.
they would hug each other, they would kiss each other, they would hold hands, they were very merry.
Not only was it written in the 50s,
but like even then,
but it's set in an ancient time that's much different.
The way men treat each other is different to the...
Plus, on top of that, you got the fantasy element, and the hobbits are gentle creatures.
Exactly. So when he was creating all these people, he thought, how would they interact with each other in their own customs?
Yeah.
Like, we talk about how deep his world building is.
Yeah.
But it runs so much deeper than people give it credit for.
It's not just language, and it's like culture. Like, he created different cultures.
Literal culture.
Yeah.
Like, so when we talk about how the quote-unquote gayness in Lord of the Rings, and... That's not us saying it. Kevin Smith makes fun of it. Everyone makes fun of.
We don't mean to be like it's not a homophobic.
No, it's very much a meme.
Yeah, it's
because
like
everyone makes fun of the way men treat each other.
It's the hobbits dancing naked in the field of flowers. They cut from the movie for
probably a good idea.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
So in the books, as I said, there's lots of deep eye gazing between men and holding hands and stuff like that. And like it gets so bad that there's a legit theory that Samwise is a closeted homosexual. Because I
don't know, man. They're not gay. They're hobbits.
To quote Kevin Smith, they're not gay. They're hobbits. There's a part of the book towards the end where Sam actually has to weigh up staying with his wife and his family who need him, or going with Frodo on the boats to die. But I say die, leaving to go to like but that's, I think, the version of heaven or whatever.
Like that all ties back to Tolkien's like the brotherhood of
but through a modern lens.
Now looking back on it,
but again, it's all very innocent. It's like I'm sure we should
we're projecting a lot.
Our modern ideas about sexuality onto those poor hobbits.
Tolkien's just like, what the hell are these guys talking about? I just made a fantasy book.
They just like being friends.
They just want to hold hands. They're best friends. They went through a war together. Don't you guys understand? But that's the point. It's like people didn't understand. That's why he wrote the book, because it's like about his time in the war. And anyway, so because the Lord of the Rings trilogy movies are like the definitive version and are so, widely known and accepted in the pop culture, not just the way they tell the story and the actors' faces associated with the characters, but the style of the thing, like the costumes, the look of it, and the lighting, the way
sound design, even.
the way those movies are lit has a very unique Lord of the Rings vibe. Like when you see a shot, you're like, oh, that's like a Lord. Like it's not just a fantasy movie. It's like that's a Lord of the Ringsy vibe.
Like, we were the prime Lord of the Rings generation in the sense that we were coming of age, I guess, when the films are coming out. So to me, Lord of the Rings, I mean, I say this also as a nerd who loves the books. Lord of the Rings is fantasy.
Yeah, but it's like for most people, when they think of fantasy, they think of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, like everything about Peter Jackson's movies, that's how it's done.
And like Lord of the Rings, the novel was really, really popular before the movies. But then when the movies came out, it was like...
it reintroduced the property. Introduced the property to a whole new generation.
Yeah, like with Game of Thrones, but on a whole new level.
Yeah.
So this Amazon series that's coming out, I'm really looking forward to it, and I can't wait to see, obviously Tolkien's rich lore and world building. Like, I want to see more of that on screen. But because you already have Peter Jackson's like definitive version... It's like even though this series won't be directly connected to that, it's like what's it going to look like?
Still some big shoes to fill.
How are they going to redesign the armor and the swords and that to be unique to themselves, but also to not copy Peter Jackson's stuff? You know what I mean? Like it's going to be it's going to be so difficult for them.
I'm sure they have some of the brightest minds working on that because the Amazon money.
Because Gollum in the movies has a very specific look. And then you look at, like, illustrations of Gollum done in the 50s or whatever, and he's like a little frog man.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the way he used to look until Peter Jackson and the crew kind of gave us the definitive version of Gollum.
I prefer the look in the movie.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Because it's more true to the character.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying is like the version of Gollum in Peter Jackson's movies and the version of most of the characters and world we see in the movies, that's the definitive version. That'll always be the best version. Even though it might not be what Tolkien's sketches look like or what the original interpretations might have been back in the day. So this new version on Amazon, even though it might not be, like connected,
it has big shoes to fill.
Yeah, it's like like we always talk about with Star Wars is like the problem with a lot of the problems with the new Star Wars movies is that they're just trying to recreate the original movies, and the movies take place in a world where Star Wars exists. Yeah. And you can't do that. And it's the same, this Amazon series might fall into the same trap where it's like, yeah, we're trying to do our own thing. It's set thousands of years before. We've got different characters, different this, different this. But, like, people know Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. So we're going to...
It's going to be interesting,
use that and we're going to...
They don't necessarily know Morgoth and, like, all the other, like, the... Because, like, before, in this, I don't know, because it's been a long time since I read the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
But I know that before Lord of the Rings takes place,
the god,
there were more evil presences running around.
No, but that's what I'm saying, is like you could...
They know Sauron, but they don't necessarily...
you're talking about the audience doesn't know... Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They don't necessarily know Sauron's boss.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I think there is room...
That's what I'm saying. The Silmarillion is so rich and so dense that you could literally make 1,000 shows for 1,000 years on different periods of time and different generations of families and different gods and wizards and creatures and places. And Amazon now has the chance to do that, and that's great, and I can't wait for it.
But they have the budget.
And they have the budget for it. And Bezos is like you said, a nerd himself and has all the money in the world. So this is the perfect time for it. Unless the writers end up turning into similar to Game of Thrones situation, But because the Lord of the Rings trilogy of movies is so ingrained in people's psyche, when the Amazon show comes out, people are just going to be comparing, and it's like, how are they going to make it different enough? Or maybe they're not even going to try. Maybe they're going to try and copy the Lord of the Rings movies, which, even though legally they can't really get away with, but like even if they did that, like I wouldn't like that. Like I want them to do their own thing.
I'm sure it'll be different. But that's why it's being said in the Second Age. Hopefully they can try something very different.
But also, like, then it'll... Yeah, but also then they run the risk of it looking like any other fantasy.
Here's also... An issue I have is Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings is pretty much universally loved by all of the Lord of the Rings nerds. Pretty much. Like, there's always going to be people who say, yeah, Bombadil should have been in it. Those people are wrong, but they're allowed to have an opinion. We live in a democracy.
Yeah.
Thanks to Sauron being defeated. We're allowed to have a democracy. So, the issue I have is Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings was so good because it was Lord of the Rings. So if we're going to have something set in Middle-earth, there are parts of the Amazon show that are going to have to be authentically Middle-earth, which means they might run the risk of looking like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Certain things. Like, for example, the design of the elves,
the
languages,
set designs.
That's what I'm afraid of is like the elves and the dwarves look like a certain thing in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah.
And they look great, and that's like the definitive versions of those characters in people's minds. Thousands and thousands of years ago, the elves and the dwarves are going to look the same.
And they did in the books.
And
they've also made games...
Even if the costumes change, the physical appearance. So
when were the games set? Because they've done a few, like, Shadows of War?
Yeah.
When were they? They were set... they were set...
Not that long before the movies, because Gollum was around. Although Gollum's like 100 at least.
Yeah, he's older than most of the people.
Bilbo's in his hundreds.
Because the ring kept him alive.
Yeah. How old? Bilbo's quite old as well, 100 something.
Yes. Yeah.
So like it's set around, but it's not. See, it's not far enough because that's another problem. Because characters live so long, Elrond is 1,000 years old, so you could have a prequel set 1,000 years before and still have all the elves look the same. But if you set it thousands and thousands and thousands of years before, you can recast it, but because the elves have been designed a certain way, see, they can
it's set between the events of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, so like within 80 years.
Yeah.
So, see, it's a really difficult thing where it's like the Amazon series I want to look different, but also the Lord of the Rings movies got it right the first time.
If it looks too different, you
Yeah,
run the risk of
exactly.
it not being
And, like,
authentic.
One of the things I love about Lord of the Rings is that the dwarfs look like dwarfs.
Yeah, exactly.
They look like what a dwarf is supposed to look
when
like.
you read a fantasy book,
Yeah.
that's a dwarf. You're
and then the Hobbit movies screwed that up, where they made these weird looking dwarves with
they were
like
kind of tall.
some of them were tall, some of them had human features. They look like hobbits. Some of them had funny ears and funny noses.
yeah.
Some of them had long hair. Some of them had short hair. Some of them had no beards. And it's like, no, you've
Give
already
me
set
Gimli.
up. Yeah, you've already set up what dwarves look like in Lord of the Rings. The start of the Lord of the Rings, when all the characters are getting the rings from Sauron, like you see the dwarf lords. Like that's what they look like. Don't
Yeah.
screw with that. And the Hobbit screwed that. Now this Amazon series might have lots of dwarf characters. How, if they make it different, like
That's the thing, though. I
know?
kind of I wouldn't be too upset if it looked similar to Peter Jackson's, because
Yeah.
in my mind, that is the look.
that's the
you know
thing.
what I mean?
It's like, for me, it's a double-edged sword where it's like, on one hand, I want them to be different and unique and have their own contained world that's not subservient to
Peter
Jackson. But also on the other hand, Peter Jackson got it so right the first time. That's like, well, why not just copy it?
It's spinning plates of
It's-
authenticity.
It's
Yeah.
not really copying. It's a difficult line, right? I suppose they have
Yeah.
to keep some elements of Peter Jackson's while also focusing on areas that weren't touched
Yeah.
on. And I think that's what they could do. If Aragorn or Strider, as he'll probably be called in the show, goes on his travels to places that you don't traditionally see much of in Lord of the Rings, that might be where they shine.
Wait a minute. I've been having this conversation without all the knowledge, which is a bit dumb thing to do. Warner Brothers did the Lord of the Rings trilogy. No, Paramount? Paramount did the Lord of the Rings trilogy with Peter Jackson.
I can't remember.
Yes.
Jamie looked that up.
Okay.
Warner Brothers did the games.
Yeah.
So at some point they must have gotten the rights because the games are very heavily influenced.
Games are non-canon.
No,
Yeah.
but they're heavily
Well, also-
influenced by the designs and
also game rights-
of the movies. Like the
because-
Gollum,
yeah.
the Gollum in the games is the same Gollum in the movies.
yeah, but
Even
game
Andy
rights-
Serkis reprised his role.
Yeah, but game rights might also be very legally different than movie
But
rights.
yeah, but when you're taking designs and character designs and costume designs directly from the movies, there
It
has
was,
to be some.
It was New Line Cinema,
Okay.
Yeah.
and I looked the games up.
It might have also been the thing like that.
So-
They might have said, we want to make a game version of Peter Jackson's thing. So it might have not been we're making a game that just drew
So
inspiration.
so Warner Brothers might have gone to New Line and be like, okay, we're going to give you. But who did The Hobbit? New Line. It was
Ooh.
probably a co-production between New Line and Warner Brothers,
Yeah, I'd
right?
say so,
So
yeah.
Warner Brothers probably owns partially the rights to Lord of the Rings in its Peter Jackson movie form. Amazon is now doing the series, so they have the rights to the Lord of the Rings world and characters, or at least the Silmarillion. Is Amazon connected to Warner Brothers in any way? Are they?
So
does Amazon own?
the production companies behind The Hobbit
Yeah.
were New Line,
Okay.
Metro Goldwyn Mayer, Wingnut,
MGM.
which is Peter Jackson's.
yeah.
And but it was distributed by Warner Brothers.
Okay, so they have the distributor, so they have some connection to that. So they made the game. So Amazon, is there a there?
I don't think
know,
so, but
I know there's they can do co-productions.
Warner
But anyway,
Brothers owns the company behind the games.
yeah. So, but anyway, I'm kind of rambling. But my point is, if Amazon is co-producing their series with Warner Brothers or New Line or whoever owns the rights to the Peter Jackson movies,
have the rights elapsed at all? Any of them?
I don't think so. But if they do have that connection, then the Amazon series could technically use the designs and use the reuse that Peter Jackson. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But also, let's not forget that Jeff Bezos has so much money that he could probably get any authorization he wants.
But that's what I'm saying. That's another thing as well. Is like, even if he just copied them without legal rights, he could just throw money at them and be like,
Yeah.
"Sorry."
And also, I suppose it depends. Like, I'm not sure about the legalities of it all, but I know that, as I said, the Tolkien estate guards everything very jealously. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe some companies leased the rights, but the Tolkien estate retained some measure of control.
Yeah.
So maybe there were stipulations. So Amazon could have certain rights to some things and be allowed to copy because the Tolkien estate said they could. I don't know for sure, but I know that the Tolkien estate makes things super complicated for people who want to make.
There's a lot of complicated
products.
behind the scenes stuff that we're not privy to. Or
This is an article from last year when this started to get going.
yeah,
According to the Hollywood Reporter, by working out a deal, Amazon has worked out a deal with New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers to sidestep concerns about properties they're not allowed to touch.
Yeah.
So apparently there's a deal in place that allows them to use...
So they'd probably be like, look, we won't use anything from The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, but all the Silmarillion stuff we're going to use.
Well, they're allowed to incorporate elements of the world that Peter Jackson has crafted.
There you go.
So the design will probably end up looking similar to...
Because that's the thing, Peter Jackson...
They're not touching the events that are, like, they're not touching the events, but they're allowed to use, quote unquote, the sort of the world.
They're not going to be like, this is... Yeah, okay.
So I'm guessing
have
that
to
means
make
mostly like art designs.
They don't have to make everything from scratch.
We just had like a half an hour conversation, which we could have not done if we had just read that. But basically, because the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies have that definitive look,
you kind of have to use them.
Yeah, it seems that Amazon was just like, we're just going to use that, but we're not going to make a prequel to the Lord of the Rings. We're just going to make our own, but use the same design, which is smart.
Again, it might not be the most creative thing they could have done.
Yeah,
but at
it's
the same
a sensible
time,
thing.
Look, like I kept saying, it's that double-edged sword.
It's going to
balance.
ensure a level of quality.
Now we know. My mind's put at rest. That half an hour of conversation was completely pointless. It's like, okay, they have that safety of Peter Jackson's designs, which hopefully they don't screw with.
Yeah, don't touch them.
Because
Leave
if
them
you
alone.
fuck with the dwarfs, because that's one of the things I hate about The Hobbit. It's all these dumb-looking dwarfs. It's like, we already know what the dwarfs look like.
Put Gimli on there, and that's fine.
Yeah, we've already seen them in Lord of the Rings. You can't make a prequel to Lord of the Rings and be like, they look different now. It's like some George Lucas level of bullshit. Fuck Pete. See, we keep praising Peter Jackson for how good Lord of the Rings is, but we also fucking did The Hobbit, which is terrible. Those movies suck. Except for the Game of Riddles. I really like that scene. You know, in the first movie.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We still haven't talked about the sort of next topic before we run out of more time.
Should we get to the Batman?
Yeah, no, let's talk quickly about The Witcher.
Well, yeah,
that's another one of our.
I don't know if we should talk about that because we could spend another hour on that.
No, but we'll just touch on it.
That's related.
So kinda. Game of Thrones ended. That sucked. Amazon's doing their Lord of the Rings series.
Who knows when that'll air?
Looking forward to it. Who knows when that'll come out?
Because it's like, is it like something crazy like $100 million an episode or something like that?
No.
I've read there was some.
Man,
I'm looking it up. There was some massive.
Can't be that
figure.
much. $100 million a season, maybe, like Game of Thrones was.
No, it was more than Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, no.
Shit.
They're putting,
I guess,
bank.
Yeah,
into
like
it.
if you're gonna recreate the Lord of the Rings movies in a series, you're gonna need to put.
Like, look, think about it this way. Apart from Deathstalker, what does Amazon Prime have? No, legit.
Man in the High Castle is pretty good.
Another article.
They have American Gods is Stars.
Yeah,
but it's on Amazon in Australia.
But like I said,
lucky for us.
This is their draw in.
Yeah, no, this is their big.
Another article from the Hollywood Reporter. Amazon's Lord of the Rings is expected to have a $1 billion budget.
No.
Don't be. Yeah, again, keep in mind, Jeff Bezos takes Lord of the Rings very seriously.
The rights deal cost Amazon $250 million.
That's just the rights deal. See, that's what's
$250 million is nothing in Bezos' eyes.
No, but that's a lot for some rights.
That's true.
So season 1, at least of this Lord of the Rings show, is going to have a $1 billion budget.
Yes.
No.
They did. You know, they're not even going to make a TV show. They're just going to build Middle Earth.
That's
They're going to buy. Amazon's going to purchase a company, a country in Europe.
If this show is bad, it'll be the most tragic event in history because you can't spend that level of money and have a show
Again,
Like
they're
no,
not-
like obviously it comes down to the writing if the writing's not good. But I'm just talking in terms of the production.
mind you,
If they screw that
No,
up with
that's the thing, though.
that
With that money,
resources, because
do you think Amazon's going to let someone piss around
because
with
the-
$1 billion?
The Lord of the Rings movies were technically independent movies. They were New Line Cinemas, a small studio. They were risking a lot, giving Peter Jackson all that money to make
Yeah.
3 movies back to back, and he made those on a pretty tight budget, all back to back. And he used a lot of practical effects, which is why they stand up so well, and which is why the Hobbit movies don't look so good because there's too much CGI.
Yeah.
So if you're spending $1 billion, even 500 million, which is a hell of a lot of money, on one season of Lord of the Rings, if that's just all CGI crap and Hobbity,
I'm hoping they use that money to
gonna
build
be
things.
Yeah, like I hope they're actually trying to recreate the original Lord of the Rings feeling of the sets and the practical and the prosthetic makeup and all that.
It's crazy.
So and if it is set thousands of years before, but he's using Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies as a sort of
as a base.
production value,
Production template.
the aesthetic template, then I guess Rivendell, they'll have to recreate Rivendell almost exactly as it was in the movies.
And this is another article.
Because Rivendell's thousands of years old.
Yeah,
So
I think so.
it's,
Yeah,
like I'm assuming it's going to be unchanged mostly.
And another article has the writers apparently locked in an office with a guard and a fingerprint scanner.
See, now I'm getting too excited. I'm going to overhype it and it's going to end up being bad.
Jeff Bezos, he's gonna go on TV one day and be like, "You didn't like Game of Thrones? Don't worry, give us 30 years to
See,
make
I
this
wish
show."
I wish I had that much money to be like, I'm just going to make
this is
a
Jeff-
passion project
Our
of
boy
something.
Jeff, we need to reach out to Jeff. Jeff, come on the show. We're nerds too.
Jeff, give us some money. We'll make whatever you want. No, like,
Give us $1 billion budget.
like I wish I was that rich and I could be like, you know what? I've always wanted a really good, I don't know, what's another book that hasn't been made? I always,
They never made The Hobbit into a TV show. I told you wrong.
yeah, that never happened.
They never made any more Star Wars movies, so $1 billion could do pretty well.
So
for
like,
that.
if you gave me the money and said you can reboot Star Wars any way you want, I would be like, oh, I wish I was that rich to just be like, you know what? I'm gonna make my own Star Wars. Or
You're sitting in
my
your
own-
office one day, I'm bored. I'm going to spend
Yeah.
$1 billion to make a Lord of the Rings TV show.
Yeah. I wish I had that much money.
What?
That's the dream.
You know, and this is Jeff's passion project, right?
Yeah.
I imagine him just like, this is what I do on my days off.
Apparently, one of the stipulations was he has to have a cameo. So
Let him do what he
Well,
wants if he's
yeah,
giving $1 billion
like,
to the budget.
I'm like I'm 100%
he
fine
can,
with that.
for all I care, he can play Stalker.
Strider.
Give him a wig.
Yeah.
That'd be hilarious. Like, he's spending $1 million to make a fan project.
That would be funny if it was like he spend that much money but end up being like a Tommy Wiseau,
Yeah.
like but with a massive budget.
All
Oh, man.
practical.
Yeah.
It's him running around this makeshift fantasy universe. Oh.
Did you take the ring? I did not.
I didn't. Well,
back to
we're running out of time.
We're running out of time. Quickly touching on The Witcher.
Yeah.
We've seen some...
This is Netflix's
Answer to Game of Thrones.
next big flagship show that they're pushing, which is going to be their answer to Game of Thrones, which
Based
is
on the books, not the games.
exactly. Which how many?
It's exciting.
There's a series of books, right? There's a
Not
few.
many, yeah, but
There's a few.
it's not
so-
a
very
couple of novellas.
Yeah, they're not
few
very
okay.
they're not
books.
very prolific.
Oh, so it's not a
So it's
ongoing.
it's one of those.
series.
I don't know if it's ongoing, but it's one of those situations where there's not a lot of source material,
Okay.
but what there is good.
Oh,
Like
okay.
you know what I mean? Like it's like
Yeah.
it's like a golden.
But what I'm
foundation.
saying
But the
is-
author's involved, isn't he?
yeah,
Yeah,
he is.
but that's what I'm saying is The Witcher has Game of Thrones early seasons template. Like they have a template of what they can do. Like they have the books to go off.
Yeah.
And they have the author they're working with.
Now this is interesting because the author had the opportunity to he had the opportunity for a payout when CD Projekt started making the games, which he took. But the other option was he doesn't get a payout and he receives a percentage of royalties from the video games.
And he made the
Yeah.
wrong
he thought
choice.
he thought that was dumb.
Yeah.
He took the payout.
And
So
he got mad.
I feel bad for the man because
No.
The Witcher was phenomenally successful and he
Yeah,
did not earn
but
that much.
'cause
He
yeah,
made his
But
choice.
then-
And CD Projekt also tried to make it right by giving him
Yeah.
more
Instead
money.
of instead of
So
copying
I'm-
to his mistake, he started talking shit about the game.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm kind of glad he's involved
Yeah,
I guess there's some type of
Well,
comic balance. But
it depends. Like, you know, he
no
might.
one can talk shit about the games. They're amazing.
But that's what I'm saying. Is like he kind of, even though it's his baby,
Yeah.
like he kind of felt threatened by it, and so his involvement in the show is good because it's like George R. R. Martin's involvement in the early
Yeah.
season of Game of Thrones. It has that support. But also because he was a bit spiteful of the games, he might be like too protective of his baby,
Yeah.
and like the writers will be like, "How about we do this?" And he's like, "No," you know, like that.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's that double-edged sword I was talking about before, about how you might have someone who's too connected to the source
franchise,
material.
yeah.
We'll see. You know, I have high hopes for this show.
Well, yeah,
And Netflix is a good home for it. They can get away with all
I
the violence, the sex.
I'm sure, yeah, one that, but also two, I'm sure they're going to pump a lot of money into it.
Oh, yeah.
Not $1 billion, but I'm pretty sure the production value is going to be very high. If they're really going to push this as their Game of Thrones, then they have to really push that production value level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we should talk a little bit about Batman.
Well, yeah, we're almost out of time. Like, I don't even know if we have enough time to talk about it, but
We can just mention it briefly, I guess.
So yeah,
Robert Pattinson's been cast as the next Batman.
yeah. So Matt Reeves' The Batman, which is, I guess, a sort of soft reboot or standalone spin-off of
Yeah.
the new Batman
So
DC.
Batfleck is gone.
Thank God for that.
I'm going to reserve judgment because Rob Pattinson wouldn't be my first choice.
Yeah,
But
so-
again, I'm just going to wait for the trailer, see how it feels
Yeah,
on
so-
film.
I actually made a list of potential Batmans, like maybe 6 months ago.
I see
When-
the list in front of me, and
Yeah.
I don't know why John Hamm is on the top. Can you please explain?
No, these aren't in any order. So, okay.
I was going to say, I'm feeling threatened.
Don't worry,
threatened.
Don't worry, Nathan. These are not in any order.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe like when did Ben Affleck say he wasn't coming back? It was quite a while ago.
Quite a while ago.
A few months at least. So I made this list quite a few months ago. But now that Robert Pattinson's been announced, it's kind of obsolete. But I thought we'd talk about it anyway, because Robert Pattinson obviously is known for the Twilight movies,
Yeah.
I guess,
Harry
and so
Potter,
people
kinda.
people started making the jokes already in the memes. But he's a really good actor, and we'll talk about why I think he might do a good job. But we'll talk about some of the other actors who were
But what
rumored.
voice is he going to put on though?
That's going to be the hardest
That's just
thing.
as important as the
Because,
actor.
okay, see, we're going to need another hour for this show. But basically, when, you know, because Bale did the Bat Rasp, and I was fine with that. It worked for that movie, whatever. Then Affleck was cast, and I hate Affleck. I think he's a terrible actor. And I was like, I said to my friend, I'm like, they're not going to do the Bat Rasp again. One, because it'll be copying Christian Bale. Two, because Ben Affleck probably can't even do it. And I bet you they're going to modulate his voice, like digitally. It's exactly what they did. So I was laughing. I'm like, Ben Affleck sucks, whatever. But yeah, I don't know what Rob Pattinson's going to do, because
Who knows? Yeah.
see, for me, Michael Keaton's always been the best Batman, because it's like
What voice did he do?
he just does a serious voice. Like he doesn't really do a. He doesn't really do.
He doesn't have a Bat
it's kind
voice
of
as
like
such.
Kevin Conroy's the best Batman.
Adam West is the best Batman.
Okay, yeah. Okay, Adam West is like God. Adam West is God level. He's on his own tier. Then Kevin Conroy, because, like, yeah, his bat voice is the best. But yeah, I like Michael Keaton because he's like it's just like a slightly deeper voice than his normal voice. But yeah, Rob Pattinson, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, so these is just a list of other actors that were either rumored or that I thought would be good for the role. So first is Armie. These aren't in any order. I just wrote them. So first is Armie Hammer, who because this new we should say the new The Batman was supposed to be about a younger Batman. Whereas Ben Affleck's Batman was supposed to be an older Batman.
Yep.
And so people were saying, oh, this might be a prequel. There was rumors it was set in the 90s. And I was like, I hope it's not a prequel. I don't want it to be connected to the current DCEU Ben Affleck Batman in any way. I want it to be a standalone, separate thing. So now they're saying, it might be a reboot.
They
it
can
might
have a
be...
young Batman. Doesn't mean it has to be in the past.
But that's what I'm saying is they should they can get a young Batman, but I don't want them to redo the origin story again. That would be boring.
Yeah, just start it when he's already Batman.
Yeah, start it when he's Batman. He can be a younger Batman. Don't make it a prequel to be like, oh, this is where Ben Affleck's Batman started and we've recasted it to make him younger, but now he's... just make it... He's his own Batman. There's no connection to any other Batman.
I think this list is good, but we should have included a picture of everyone's chins.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll talk because I got some chin memory of all these.
Okay,
actors.
we got chin memory.
Yeah. So some of these actors are younger to fit in with that. The Batman was supposed to be a younger Batman, and some of them are older just because they would fit well with Batman.
Yeah.
So Armie Hammer, I think, would be. That guy's just a real life superhero. He could be any superhero. He could be Superman. He could be Batman. He could be Aquaman. He could be Flash. He could be that guy just looks like a superhero.
He's a good generic young male superhero.
He's like got the chin. He's tall. He's buff. He's young. Like just you could cast him as any superhero really.
The next name I'm not so sure about.
See, this wasn't my choice. This was a rumor. John Krasinski,
Nah, it doesn't have a face for it.
who is kind of rebranding himself as
The
action guy.
I don't like him for it.
Personally, I don't really see him as maybe as like a young. If he was younger, he could play the Flash or something. But I don't really see him as a Batman. He's also, I think, he's 40s, in his 40s, mid 40s.
Yeah.
So that goes into the older side. Matthew Good, he was rumored. He's a really good actor, but he's a bit thin, bit skinny. He would be good as maybe a villain, or he played the villain in Watchmen. So that was just a rumor. Ben Barnes, who played Jigsaw in the Punisher series.
I was going to be like the old man from the Saw series. I'm like, bold choice. Bold choice, I suppose.
When they said they were rebooting Batman, I didn't think this is what they meant. I think he was an interesting choice, but again, I think he could play maybe a different hero. Jamie Dornan.
Too sexy. Too tainted.
Yeah, but like he's another actor who's good, but he was in those those movies, so it's tainted.
Too much room for fan fiction about.
That's true. But that fan fiction is going to happen regardless.
No, you know what I mean? Like
there's going to be great crossovers.
Grey, Christian Grey during the day, Batman at night.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Wayne.
Yeah, nah, I'll pass on that one.
Wes Bentley, I think another interesting choice. But yeah, I don't know if I see him as Batman. Like he would have been interesting. I think a lot of these people on this list could play heroes because they have that kind of classical, handsome, big chin. But
Taron Egerton's interesting.
Yeah. Taron Egerton was rumored because he's a younger guy. He's hot right now.
Yeah, but I mean, if Batman burst into sing, it'd be fine.
Nah, I think he could pull it off. He's got range.
I don't know.
I don't really
feel
see
like
him.
I don't feel like he doesn't
young
seem
Batman.
big enough.
Actually, that's true. He's not.
He's pretty buff. He can buff out.
Yeah,
but,
he can beef out.
Yeah, like
do we
he's
want
not,
a
I don't
short
think,
Batman? Is
I
he
don't think
tall enough?
I don't think he's that tall. He doesn't appear.
He'd
to
be
be
a good Robin or like a Nightwing kind of
Yeah,
guy.
Yeah,
I don't
Nightwing,
think his.
yeah.
I don't think his stature is. I don't think he's tall enough for Batman.
Yeah.
Personally.
See, look, Nicolas Cage is Batman. That's it.
Nicolas Cage is everyone. So Nicholas Hoult was rumored as this young. I think Pattinson and Hoult were kind of the two big rumors. I personally don't think Nicholas Hoult would be good as Batman at all. I didn't even want him to include him on this list, but I did because he was like the biggest rumor that he was going to be cast. I like Nicholas Hoult in some roles, in other roles I don't like him. But yeah, I'm glad that. I mean, hopefully he's not playing him. Emery Cohen, I think, is a really good actor, really interesting. He could play a younger Batman. He could play a Nightwing. I think he would be good. Richard Madden has been rumored. He's also been rumored as the next Bond. Like he's definitely someone who's about to break big, I think, and could pull it off. Oscar Isaac, obviously.
Look, he can do anything, but obviously, I honestly, I just feel like he wouldn't make the best Batman.
Richard Madden.
No.
I feel like Oscar Isaac might be too old for younger Batman.
Yeah, we'll see. Oscar Isaac's 40, but I think,
he's not.
He could definitely pull it off. But yeah, he's definitely got that superhero look. He could play another superhero. Baby Goose, Ryan Gosling, our boy.
I mean, I'm always down.
He was rumored a long time ago.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I think I remember.
Yeah, so like, I mean, he's not really who I have in mind.
But I just like to see him in any role.
It's like we like to see him. Carl Urban, obviously, like he's already Judge Dredd. He's already got the chin. Like, it's like it's pretty obvious. Josh Brolin,
the chin.
I know
Brolin's good.
I know John Hamm's your boy, but Josh Brolin to me is like older Batman.
Brolin
plus
is
110%.
Brolin is the ideal
Yeah.
older Batman.
So-
John Hamm's the ideal older Bruce Wayne.
Oh.
Ah.
They could dual
They
cast.
could dual cast it. Have Josh Brolin
But-
in the suit and
yeah.
John Hamm Brolin in the bad suit, Josh Hamm in the penguin suit.
in the tux, yeah.
Yeah,
So before Ben Affleck got the role, Josh Brolin was supposed to play the older grizzled Batman in the DCEU movies. He would have been the perfect choice, and I would have preferred him a billion times over Ben Affleck. Luckily, I think he ended up doing Thanos instead and didn't take the role. That probably worked out for the best because the DCE movies kind of tanked and they're rebooting Batman. And I'm sad that I never got to see him play Batman, but I guess I'm glad that he didn't play it in those shitty
And he
Zack
also
Snyder movies.
he also did a good job with Thanos as well. So
And Thanos was really, really good.
yeah,
John Hamm, obviously.
the people's choice.
Like, again, he's another actor who could play pretty much any superhero, Superman especially.
Well,
but
the beefier
Batman.
ones, yeah.
Yeah, like, he's got the chin, he's got the black hair, like, he's handsome, like, he's a real-life superhero. And Jake Gyllenhaal...
Does he have
was-
the chin though?
Yeah, he's got a pretty nice chin. But he was in the running to play Batman for Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Before Bale was cast. I think he was very close to playing young
But I think
Bruce
we're all very
Wayne.
happy Bale got it.
But yeah, Bale ended up being a really good choice. But I think Jake Gyllenhaal could have pulled it off, and I think now, especially the Jake Gyllenhaal now with all these really strong dramatic roles,
Yeah.
and he could definitely pull it off. But this again, like our discussion that we had with Lord of the Rings, it's kind of all pointless because Robert Pattinson, I don't think he's confirmed, but he's been pretty much announced, from what I understand.
Yeah, we'll see how it pans out.
I don't know if they're going to pull a fast one and be like, no, that was just a rumor. But I think he's pretty much in the role now. Like I said at the start of the discussion, he has that Twilight stank on him. But
He's done some good movies though.
since then, he's completely reinvented himself as a sort of indie dramatic kind
Yeah.
of really, really intense, interesting actor who does really interesting roles.
And he was in Harry Potter.
He was in Harry Potter before
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twilight, which is he was good in that.
Yeah.
But anyway, like for me, he's gotten over that stigma.
Oh no,
Yeah.
definitely. He's a really good actor.
Yeah. So, he was in Good Time, which he's fucking amazing in.
That's a good movie.
He is fucking incredible. He was also good in The Lost City of Zed and in The Rover, he's really good in that too.
He's got a couple of movies coming out as well.
Exactly. And he's also going to be in High Life, which I'm really looking forward to.
That's
That's
good.
supposed to come out in a
Hopefully
couple
that
of
comes
weeks.
out locally.
I don't think it is, but I'm going to go into the city to see it, so I'll invite you guys along. He's also going to be in The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe,
Ooh.
which is a really interesting like horror thriller directed by the guy who did The Witch, which is another really good movie.
Down for
so
that.
I'm really interested in that. Robert Pattinson is also the lead in Christopher Nolan's new movie Tenet.
Nice.
So this guy went from like shitty teen heartthrob, crappy sparkly vampire
He's doing a
movies.
reconnaissance, right? So that's what you're trying to say.
To sort of indie darling, dramatic, intense roles to A-list action blockbuster tentpole movie
Nice.
main actor. So being cast as Batman is just the next step in that, and I think he's going to do a really good job. I think he'll be a really good Bruce Wayne in the same way that Christian Bale played Bruce Wayne in that kind of slimy kind of
Yeah.
Wolf of Wall Street kind of way. I think
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson's gotten that down to a pat. He was in David Cronenberg's Cosmopolis, where he pretty much plays that character. He's also got that look kind of to him. It's just the Batman side, the superhero
Yeah.
side, the suit, the chin. He's got a decent chin. Robert Pattinson's not a bad chin. That's the element that we'll have to see. I'm sure he'll do training, martial arts training. I'm sure he'll beef up for the role like Christian Bale did. So I'm actually really interested to see him as the Batman.
Yeah.
As to whether the movie's going to be any good, who knows? But I think Pattinson will
Odds are
do a
slim.
good job. So, yeah, like we said, hopefully it's not a prequel to any other previous movie. Hopefully it's not an origin story again. Matt Reeves, the director, has said that it's going to be a noir detective story.
Oh, God, I hope so.
Which we all really want to see Batman finally get
Because we've never seen a real-life Batman on screen solve a real mystery.
Yeah, he's never really done
they always go
detective
that kind
work.
of...
He's done a little bit, but not
But they always tend to go the action route.
Exactly.
I want to see a detective story.
There's rumors that the movie's going to be based sort of on The Long Halloween.
Which is like the quintessential kind of detective story.
Kind of like murder mystery. So hopefully, even though it might not be a direct adaptation, hopefully it definitely has that
inspiration
vibe.
From,
Can Kevin Smith write the screenplay?
Actually, he does write good Batman stories. So
I'm not joking.
Okay. Yeah, based on his comic run.
Yeah, so I think he that's actually not a bad idea. He understands Batman.
Yeah.
You know, like I wouldn't get him to direct.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I would.
No, that's what I said. Write the screenplay.
Yeah.
He understands Batman very well, so that would actually be an interesting choice.
Yeah.
Because I think he would actually knock it out of the park.
Well, and he's working with DC at the moment.
Pretty much all of his runs on Batman are mystery detective stories.
Yeah.
He does.
I read his Green Arrow a long time ago. It was pretty good.
Yeah. His comic books like solid
for as for as silly as his movies can be, and as much shit he sometimes talks. Like when he gets down to the comic book characters,
he's good
like he really understands.
Well, he's a massive comic book nerd. He lives and breathes for that shit.
Yeah.
Like as we all do. But no, that would actually be an interesting choice. That's why they get him to do Flash episodes. They get him to do Supergirl episodes.
Yeah.
And his episodes always rate highly because he understands the source material.
Yeah, and he likes directing that stuff.
Yeah, and apparently they like him doing it as well.
So yeah, when this movie was in early development stages, when Ben Affleck was rumored to be writing and directing, Deathstroke was, I think, supposed to be the villain. But since Ben Affleck obviously wasn't going to direct it, and then now's not going to star in it, and now's not going to write it.
And we see too much Deathstroke.
Yeah, I feel like the Deathstroke they were maybe going towards might have been the same Deathstroke we see at the end of Justice League. Joe Manganiello?
The same dude as the TV show.
Yeah, so... I think now that's, if this is a reboot and not connected, which I hope it is, I hope that's off the table.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I like Deathstroke and as much as I think he'll be a good villain in a standalone Batman movie, I think that'll bring up too much of the ninja fighting stuff.
Yeah.
Which the movie's probably going to have a lot of, but I want more of the Long Halloween detective stuff.
If they do have Deathstroke as a bad guy, it should only be made apparent he's the bad guy at the end. Like, it should be Batman solving a series of crimes
but see,
to find where Deathstroke is.
But Deathstroke's also not that kind of villain that would work well in a murder mystery or
he's very much a kind
detective
of let's fight
movie.
kind of guy.
He's the action ninja assassin kind of stuff. Catwoman and the Penguin have been rumored to be the villains in it. I don't really like that because Batman Returns already did those villains.
Yeah.
Like, that seems retready. Even though obviously this will be a really drastically different interpretation. I don't really like that idea.
Jim Carrey should come back as the Riddler.
Well, that's what I want to talk about. In the Long Halloween, it has quite a large roster of villains, even though it doesn't really focus on all of them.
The Calendar Man?
Kind of cameos. So Calendar Man, Catwoman, Scarecrow, Joker, Mad Hatter, Poison Ivy, and the origin of Two-Face and the Riddler are all shown in the Long Halloween.
Would be awesome if it was the Calendar Man is the main bad guy, but it's like a Silence of the Lambs situation where he's set up a series of things to go wrong in Gotham City.
That's kind of...
And Batman has to kind of get clues from him to solve the puzzles.
Yeah, that's kind of what's so great about Long Halloween is they reintroduced Calendar Man, who was this crappy, campy Joker villain, into this more Hannibal Lecter, in Arkham kind of toying with Batman. So I think that would be really interesting. But this all comes back to, we haven't really seen a really good, really solid version of the Riddler on screen.
Yeah.
In the 60s series, Frank Gorshin is next level brilliant, but he's goofy, he's campy, he's silly. Same in Batman Forever. Jim Carrey is funny, but he's goofy, he's campy, he's silly. We've never seen the cold, calculating, egotistical maniac of the Riddler that you see in some of the great... yeah. I don't really like that
little more serious,
interpretation.
but it's...
that shows a bit. We won't talk about that. But anyway, so we have never seen that kind of really cool Hannibal Lecter-esque.
Like
The Riddler.
Borrow the sort of character framework from the games.
Exactly. Even more serious and not full Nolan. You know, like we discussed during the Shazam episode with Alex, like, I love what Nolan did. I love the serious grittiness, the realism of the Nolan trilogy, Dark Knight trilogy. But I would like them to maybe skew towards more some of the comic booky stuff that we love so much. But don't go full into the silly, campy, over-the-top craziness. And obviously, if this is a grounded detective noir story, you don't want to introduce too much of that stuff. So yeah, I wanted just a really good Riddler who's behind all the kind of a Batman hush thing, kind of like a really cool mystery. Maybe a few cameos from other villains, maybe some C roster villains.
Definitely.
But the Riddler is behind it all, and get a really good actor to sort of bite into that role more sinister.
A detective story lends itself very well to the Riddler.
Exactly. He's the perfect villain for a detective mystery.
Like puzzles.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, solve this puzzle. And, and it's not about the action, it's about the intellectual puzzle of the mystery.
I think we're all out of time.
So we're way out of time, and this is going to be a bitch to edit, and I'm so tired. But I'm glad we got to really sink our teeth into all that. Like, I love just talking about all this nerdy shit and speculating. And like I said, last week was so rushed. I really wanted to take time with
some episodes are for the fans, some episodes are for us, and this one was for us.
Oh no, I think if there are people out there who like pop culture, who like comic books, who like
sometimes we enjoy,
I think they'll get a kick out of this.
Yeah,
so
and we enjoy talking about some subjects more than others.
But also like that, we've only got like 2 listeners, and I really appreciate you. But if you have friends who like comic books, who like movies and stuff, like share this episode with them, because I think they'll get it. Especially Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones has, I think, maybe connected with more people.
It's a good entry point
than perhaps being into Batman comics has. You know, so it's like, give them the Game of Thrones. They can just listen to the Game of Thrones part and then end. So
shoot us some feedback as well.
Yeah. Also,
how did you feel about the Game of Thrones ending?
Yeah,
Did we miss anything?
Message us on the Facebook page or tweet at us. We would like to hear from you, and we appreciate you listening.
Thank you for listening.
Yes.
Like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page. You can follow us on Twitter at Tuesday Review AU. You can follow James on Instagram at Channel Drifter. You can find our previous episodes on your favorite podcasting app, but I don't think we're on Spotify.
No, we're not.
If you like video games, please check out Alan and Jake's show Sunrise Arcade. Matty J's show is called Car Talk, where him and a whole coterie of guests talk about cars. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the Tuesday Review on iTunes. It helps us a lot.
Yes.
It's Tuesday. You've been reviewed.
No, you fucking asshole.
Adios, cousins.
Ah, man.